Welcome to the Developing Your Football World podcast. Our guest today is Joe Brine. Joe is relatively new to coaching, stepping into football after a very successful entrepreneurial career in music and fashion. Working as a CEO of global business, listen to Joe's story and learn from his journey. Enjoy. Joe, how are you doing today?
Hey, well, yeah, good, thank you. Really good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for giving up your time and coming to talk to us. I really appreciate it. A lot of coaches get so much benefit and use out of listening to people like yourself, and so I know you've got some wonderful things to tell us today.
Wonderful, yeah. I'll leave that to you and other people to find an adjective. I just think I've got a quite unique story in coaching and in life experience in general. So just keen to chat about it in case it inspires anyone else to give it a go. And also you never know who you might meet along the way, and you know where paths might cross. So I'm always up for talking about who I am, what I've done over the last few years, and where I want to get to. So yeah, wonderful. Maybe, who knows? We'll see.
Well, let's dive in. We'll start with, what are you doing now in coaching?
Okay, so coaching currently within AFC Bournemouth's pre-academy, junior training centre, and also the academy as well. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, really. I've been there since the summer of last year, but it was never really my intention. Still quite early days in terms of my coaching career and that pathway. I was just supposed to be reading books and meeting people and consuming football-based content last year, which I'm sure we'll get to in terms of how I got to that point. But I was very grateful to be given an opportunity to jump straight in, and you know, what an environment, what a club to join. It's that elite level that you're not privy to unless you're in and amongst it. So yeah, currently coaching there, leading sessions, assisting within the academy. A few conversations around very basic conversations for me around recruitment. But yeah, just doing as much as I possibly can, helping those boys and learn new skills and start them on their journey as well. You know, some of these boys are 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They've still got their whole lives, their whole football careers in front of them. So you get quite a kick out of, seeing them enjoy football. But it's, so I'm down at Bournemouth and, rubbing shoulders with some fantastic people, some fantastic coaches. And like I said, it's a fantastic environment to be involved in.
Well, I'm sure it is. So let's go to the start. What were your origins into coaching?
Origins into coaching. I was having a little think about this. Could you kindly prepped me with some of these questions? And it's only when you sit and have that period of reflection, you realise where certain steps happened for the first time. And with coaching, I think it happened about 6 or 7 years ago. I was playing, not a very decent level, kickabout park football with my mates. I just joined the club. I'd been there for about 6 months, and I'd been made captain. So I think that, again, without realising, that showed some initial leadership qualities already, and a trust within the group. It was a decent level. We were still competing in and around leagues in Dorset, but we weren't going to win the Champions League. It wasn't really professional. But we were playing, and then the manager left with about 10 games to go, and the chairman said, "Look, Joe, would you as captain, you've obviously got you're well liked amongst the group. Would you like to just step in and take some sessions and manage the team for the last section of the season?" And I didn't really know what to expect or what to do, but I was like, yeah, of course. I'm a massive Bournemouth fan. I have been a Bournemouth fan since I was about 8 years old, and you can't not be inspired by the Eddie Howe story and all of that everyone knows about, from bottom of the League Two all the way up. And at the point that I was playing and asked to coach, was in that heyday. So you can't, like I said, you can't not be inspired by that. So I don't know, I just sort of thought, well, why not? I still get to play. No one else was going to do it. It's only for 10 games. Why not? And it consumed me. It took over my life. It got under my skin, and more than it should have ever done. I'm talking, like I said, park football. We're not going to go and win major trophies. And I would be planning sessions. My whole desk would be covered in session plans and, working out team sheets for the weekend. And it just completely took over. And I think I knew then that I had the bug for it. And I loved it. And I loved being on the grass with the boys. Nothing changed from being their friend and their peer and their colleague, essentially, to being coach and manager. Nothing really changed. So I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it was at that moment I was like, right, well, if park football can consume me that much, then maybe I should explore this in a bit more detail and follow that passion and that love for the game. It didn't, though, sadly. I had to put it on pause. And I'm sure we'll get onto this. I was running a business and still am within media. And it was just at the point where it was just getting really big and growing, and it was, there was a lot going on. My now wife and I had a young family at the time, so it's like football had to give, like it always does, but I just I knew that I had to revisit it at a later stage, and at the turn of last year, that's when I knew that the timing was right to sort of enter football again. And yeah, like I said, I did not expect it to go from park football to coaching within AFC Bournemouth's academy, but they obviously saw something in me, and I was able to impress, and like I said, it's been a fantastic journey since those days a few years ago.
So now that you've got into coaching, what are your ambitions? Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve?
I'm a massive believer in not dampening down ambition either. Just before I go into as a preface to what I'm about to say, I think as I like to shoot for the stars, I like to aim big, and I don't think people should be within themselves just to sound a bit more realistic. Like I'm not going to lie. I'm going to sit here. I want to be a first team coach or a head coach or a manager within a first team environment as quickly as I possibly can. And I know that the odds are stacked against me in terms of, maybe modern day is not as much, but, I don't have the playing career that, some people do. I currently don't have all the badges that some people do, and I don't have the years of experience that others do. But what I do have is 10 years of experience as CEO of a global media company, and all of the layers that come with that of actual life experience. And I know that I can offer something, and I know that I can use that to get to where I want to get to. So yeah, I'm a massive believer in being as ambitious as you possibly can. And yeah, there's a little bit in me that gets excited when the thought of being a head coach or a manager somewhere in the world, in however many months or years time that might be, but I also appreciate I've got to do my graft, and I've got to learn and get the hours under my belt to get to that point. But that's where I want to be. If I had a dream, and I was being completely honest, that's where I want to be, and I need to do everything I can to get there.
Well, let's come away from coaching and start talking about your business and what you've been doing off the pitch.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what is Penalty Magazine?
Okay, so Penalty is a football and culture magazine and digital platform. it's also a bit of a hybrid with a sort of creative agency. So we create content for brands, and then also have an editorial lens and an editorial platform. Um, a specific look at sort of grassroots and sort of the lesser names in the game. There's lots of our competitors really focus on that top tier Premier League, top level. You know, they have Rashford on the cover or whatever it might be, which is all great, and we'd love to do things like that in the future. But we're trying to really focus on the sort of the nitty gritty of the game and the aesthetic of the game. You know, throwing the ball in the air and the grass falling off it in HD, that kind of thing. The purists of the game, I suppose, with some music and some fashion thrown in for good measure. That comes off the back of my current business, the one that's maybe slightly bigger. It's been going for longer, which is called Tomorrow. That is essentially the same as what I've just described with Penalty, but in the music and fashion space. No sport, no football. So Tomorrow came first, and then I always thought my route into football was going to be through media. So, you know, it's my bread and butter, branding, content creation, being creative. That's just what I do. So I always thought, well, if I want to work in football, I could go in through media and I'll create a media publication around football. And that's what Penalty was always supposed to be. I then realized and, remembered that I wanted to try and get closer to the game and on the grass, but it's still a great asset to have, and allows me to talk to players, to coaches, creatives in and around football, and have that different angle to something that I do and that I can offer. But yeah, Tomorrow is a bigger beast. It's been going a bit longer, something I'm extremely proud of. We've done shoots with the likes of Kylie Jenner, The Weeknd, Billie Eilish. We've got offices and teams in New York, LA, Seoul, so I'm well versed in managing people and different types of people on different time zones, and bringing all of that together to achieve a set goal or a set target. So I'm trying to bring all of that into the football world, and Penalty is more specific to football, in answer to your question.
In regards to Penalty, you mentioned music, fashion, culture, that kind of thing, all linked in with football, or kind of separate?
We try to link it in as much as possible. Yeah. They don't have to be a football fan. The photo shoot doesn't have to have them wearing a football shirt, but there tends to be a link because that is the lifeblood of Penalty. And that's why we try to keep them separate from what we do at Tomorrow. It's a similar team, so you can often, cross over in a really good way, cross-pollinate both brands and both opportunities. But yeah, we tend to keep it quite football, the link to football quite obvious. So recently we did a shoot with a band called Sophie, SOFY, and she's wearing a football shirt in East London. There's a clear link, and we take them to a game, or we take them to a park and there's a football pitch, and goal jumpers for goalposts, that kind of thing. So yeah, there does tend to be a link between the three.
What kind of football content do you cover with Penalty?
As much as we can, really. I think I mentioned it a minute ago around the grassroots sort of aspect. So we're working on something at the moment where we're going to interview like the person that is on the turnstiles at a non-league game, the physio in League Two, the kit man in the non-league. So bits like that, and then trying to glamorize it a little bit by we do some shoots with youth players or reserve players in and around the academy. We've done a lot of women's football. So we shot Ellie Roebuck, who was England's #1 before she got injured last summer. We've done some really good bits. We've done some work with Liverpool Football Club around a retail launch that they did, and they got David James involved. So that was pretty cool. We did a boot launch with New Balance. So we did some photos and content around some new boots. And we did shoot the New England kit for the postponed Euros with Nike. So kind of a combination of a real 360 look at the football industry as a whole, just with our creative lens and aesthetic that we've got known for as a collective, as a team, through our work with Tomorrow.
I've seen to cover a wide range, and I can think quite a few people will be interested, particularly some of those stories that aren't being told by other outlets. So who do you see as your kind of main target audience for this?
To use some words I just said, the football purist, not the hipster, not the East London Shoreditch football fan who doesn't really know football, but someone that, understands the aesthetic and the love of the game. And the word aesthetic can mean not just visual, but like, the tangibility of what football actually means to them in terms of memories and the way things can look and the way they spark emotion. So we try to replicate that. Age is irrelevant, anywhere from sort of 18, 19, 20 upwards. It's a real premium product. So the actual print magazine that comes out twice a year, it's real bulky. It's a real big product and sits perfectly on a coffee table. So it's that kind of premium aesthetic, people that will sit and enjoy football content, both in word format and also visually as well. We're on we're talking about coaching. We're on a coach-based podcast. Coaches would love it, but it's not like analytical or tactical. You'll love it if you just love the game, and most coaches obviously will do that.
Yeah, most coaches are obsessed with football, so like a lot of those stories. I know that a lot of that kind of stuff appeals to me. I probably spent too much time in the past reading about that kind of thing, but because you're hooked, you're just fascinated with so many different elements of football. So it sounds like there's a lot in there for a lot of different types of football fans. So I will definitely make sure to have a look when we're done.
Thank you.
And at the end of the podcast as well, when we broadcast it, I'll make sure to put some links out there too, so people can hopefully find it. So now let's talk about Tomorrow. That's TMRW. What is that? How did you start? Because to be a CEO of a business where you work in multiple countries with some fairly big names, what are the origins of that? Let's now talk about Tomorrow, TMRW. What is that, and how did it start?
Tomorrow predated penalty. So it started off as a hobby for me in my parents' bedroom about 11 years ago. Not my parents' bedroom, my bedroom in my parents' house. You might want to cut that. Let's do that again, Will. Let's do that bit again.
Sure, that's pretty funny.
That won't make the edit.
I'll save it for a blooper reel in the future. All right. Okay, focus.
Wow.
What is Tomorrow? TMRW. Tell us about it and how did it start?
Okay, cool. So Tomorrow predates penalty. I think I just alluded to it ever so slightly, but yeah, it started off as a hobby. I was between jobs about 11 years ago. I just wanted to work in those bright lights of music, of fashion. I wanted to work in London. I grew up in rural Dorset. You're supposed to be a farmer. You're supposed to be the butcher, the candlestick maker, and that I never felt like me. I never really fitted in that sense. I loved obviously football. We would play out on the parks for hours, but I also had a real interest in listening to new music, and that kind of came about as a teenager. Things like the iPod was was created and brought out MP3 players, things like that. It all started to get a lot more accessible, and so I started to listen to new music. So I was always at school in the playground. I remember it vividly, saying to my friends, "Oh, you should listen to this song," and it hadn't even been released, or this band they hadn't heard of, and um, then the song would go on to be massive, and I sort of, like, I told you so, that kind of thing. So I wanted to harness that in some way. And like I said, I was between jobs. I dropped out of doing uni. I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing. I mean, still really don't, and not a lot of us do, and that's fine. I just wanted to create something that I could put on my CV, maybe learn some new skills in my spare time, with the sole objective, and it sounds silly now, but the sole objective was just to get a job in London within that world. So I created a blog, and then it snowballed and became Tomorrow, and it became a magazine, because I realized I wanted to try and monetize it in some way. I fumbled my way through it. I was on Google. I was trying to connect with people through, at the time it was Twitter and the good old hashtag Follow Friday that did wonders for me, and the brand at that time. And yeah, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I managed to put together a couple of issues. I call them issues. They're not really issues in what we do now, but a couple of print issues. Did a few photo shoots, did a few interviews, and I managed to get a job in London. Managed to work in fashion PR. Packed my bags and moved up. So left home at 21, moved to London. I thought that was it. I thought that was life complete. I managed to start something from scratch with no prior experience, no skill set, didn't know anyone, grew up in deepest, darkest Dorset, and I managed to do it. And I thought that was amazing. And obviously I loved talking about it. It became part of me. It became my USP. It became something that no one else had really done in that world. And then there I was, in Camden, North London, working in an agency, hustle and bustle of London. I was living the dream that I had a few months ago. It was fantastic. But what I realised, that was all well and good and great, and a lot of people would have given everything for that. But I realised that I wanted to then just work on Tomorrow and to grow that, and that took time. So I had to work in PR or freelance PR on the side, separate in the worlds of music and fashion. And then in the background, I was growing Tomorrow and building a team and making decisions. And you mentioned it, everything that goes with it to then become a global entity was a huge task. And I was very fortunate to work with some fantastic people who have along the years have given me time and energy and ideas, and as a collective, it's just, like I said, it's just grown to more than it was ever supposed to be. It was supposed to get me a job in London, and that was it. And then it just grew and grew and grew, and very grateful, and like I said, very proud. It's not often I sit back and reflect, and in moments like this I get the chance to do that. So it's been a journey, it's been a ride, but it's been fantastic, and it's I've learned so much and have so much experience and competence in a lot of different areas now that I would never have had I've just floated between jobs and done what you're supposed to do. So I'm glad I took that punt and took the jump to just go and do it, and I'm trying to replicate that now in football. I have that blueprint almost, that I knew this worked for me, networking and reaching out and just being authentic to me with all of those experiences. I'm now trying to do that again, and build out and carve out a career in the football industry.
That is a fantastic story, and it's inspiring, and it's good to hear people being able to follow their dreams and succeed in life. And yeah, where a lot of people who've done well, they often miss the opportunities to sit back and reflect. I've done a good job here. As long as you don't spend all day patting yourself on the back, which you're not doing at all, but to just pause for it and go, yeah, I've done well here. That's really good. So your story, I was making a lot of notes there. It's very similar to a lot of the advice that we would give to football coaches, and I think it goes for a lot of different career types as well. So you said early 20s, not quite sure what you want to do, tried university, wasn't for you. And I think the stigma around a lot of university is it's a negative one. If you don't do it, if you don't go there, if you don't try and get a degree, then you're thick and you're useless and you got no hope. And that is not the case at all. There is loads of examples of people not going to university who've done really, really well, who've been able to make something for themselves. And there's loads of intelligent people who drop out of university. I think pretty much every school has a poster of someone like Einstein or Bill Gates or Stephen Hawking complaining about the way education was done. There's so many famous and successful people who've gone, this is not for me. And that's perfectly fine because there's so many different routes to success. But what you've then done from there is like you said, it's a great blueprint. So with little idea of what you want to do, but you know your passions, so you started to work on them. So you've created a blog, so you're starting to, with a blog, you can help other people. You can flesh out your ideas. You can get the word out there. You started to use social media, and you've been networking. And a lot of people are really not keen on the idea of social media. And it doesn't mean that you go on Instagram and share what you're having for dinner every day. But what you do is you connect with like-minded people. You find people that you look up to. You find people that you can learn from. And start to ask some questions, start to interact, start to share your own content as well, and get ideas back. So, in football, it would be things like session plans, methodology, clips from games. So, hi guys, I've done this. What do you think? Or finding the people that you want to be, their job, their role, that kind of position, where you want to go. Find them. A lot of people who've done well for themselves are featured in articles and interviews. And a lot of the information about how they became successful and how they developed their skills, it's out there. So social media is great for that. You've used that to network. So what that does is it starts to build your own stock. And there's quite a lot of coaches that have done very well for themselves because of their social media presence, because they've put a lot of really good content out there, because they've been helping others, they've grown their following. And they've got thousands of followers on particularly Twitter. Seems to be where it's best for coaches, because LinkedIn is still it's not entirely user friendly, and I think LinkedIn can be a bit false as well, even worse than Instagram at times. People are putting on a facade. So coach Twitter is great, as long as you're relatively authentic and you're sharing stuff. Eventually, when job positions come, hey, I'm going to ask that guy on Twitter with 10,000 followers who puts out those brilliant session plans. But that helps you then build those connections. As long as you got that passion for it. You said you found your unique selling point as well through a lot of hard work and sacrifice. So you've left your family, you've left your comfort zone, you've gone to a place which isn't yours, where you haven't grown up in, and you've worked really, really hard, but you've also been working in a few different environments and almost barking on a few different trees as well. Because nowadays you can't just have one string to your bow. You can't just be a one-trick pony. So in football, we'll try and emphasize the idea of learning other aspects of the game. So you might be an outfield coach, but why not get a bit of goalkeeping under your belt? Why not do a bit of futsal? Why not some analysis or coaching disabled footballers? Because all that kind of stuff will then add up and give you a more well-rounded 360 view of how the game works, all these different components you can put together. And a lot of coaches have got experience in other sports too. They've done a bit of badminton, cricket, basketball, whatever it might be, because you learn so much. You make more connections, you get different perspectives. So you've done a lot of that really good stuff. So that if you strip it back to the basics, away from music, away from fashion, away from football, away from all those things, and look at what you did, just a decision-making point of view, a hard work point of view, it is a great blueprint for people to follow. So there's so much value in you sharing that story with us that I'm sure a lot of people will be able to take. And it's testament to a lot of the things that you've done. It's it's a simple process, but it requires a lot of effort. So it's really, really inspiring to hear that you've done so well. So let's keep patting you on the back for a bit longer. With Tomorrow, you mentioned you've got offices in different parts of the world. How did you get to that stage?
Well, just firstly, thank you for that. It means a lot. And I've probably not touched on a lot of it there. You're right, a lot goes into it. That's just the top line. There's lots of negative in there. Just worth saying, there's been lots of lows, and there's been some amazing highs. We have a saying at home where there is no ceiling in what we've done, but there's also no floor. So it's there have been some really tough moments where it's not quite worked out. So I don't want people to think it's all been an easy ride and, we shot Kylie Jenner, that was great, and that just happened because it happened. Years of graft and making wrong decisions, making right decisions, goes into that big pot, and out comes me in 2023 trying to be a football coach. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it, and I'd love to, if anyone wants to, they can speak to me about it, and I can go into more detail. That's not a problem. But yeah, I really appreciate what you've just said then, and hopefully it does inspire people. I normalize it because that's just what I've done, and I've just made these decisions along the way. It's only when it's all rolled up into a ball after 10, 11 years that it obviously, it sounds the way it sounds. So there was really no plan. There was no methodology to it. I didn't sit down and go, right, if I do this, I can do this and I'll get there. But, you have to follow your gut, and be intuitive and make those decisions and just have a process, trust that process, and eventually you'll get to where you need to get to. But yeah, in terms of the global team that we have, I did make one conscious decision, which was we weren't gonna you see a lot in business TV programs and news, and the misconception is that you need to just throw a load of money at everything, and that's probably the same in football in terms of recruitment and playing and staff. The idea that you can just get someone else's money and throw it and hope for the best, and spend. I think I realised early on that wasn't the route that we wanted to take. So we never got investment from outside the family. I was very fortunate. I had a small chunk of money from my uncle that set us up massively, and without that we probably wouldn't have achieved everything that we achieved. But we never then sought further investment to get bigger. We always kept it in-house, and if we, with every penny that we made, investor got back into the company quite early on, and that was a conscious decision that, okay, we're not going to go and spend loads of money and employ 10 people in New York, 10 people in LA, have a high-rise office in London. We were going to keep this real close-knit creative freelancer network where we could sort of plug into their process and then plug out if we needed to. So it then allowed us to say, well, we've got 10 people on the ground in LA and New York. If you want us to do a shoot over there, not a problem. We vetted them. We know that their aesthetic fits with ours. We've worked with them before. So it allowed us to grow so much quicker without the expenditure and the overheads of, having to have, fixed overheads over there. So that was a real conscious decision, and that allowed us to grow really quickly. And so now what we're left with is this real black book of contacts that are everywhere in the world. So if we're ever offered the chance to shoot somebody, a photo shoot, sorry, paraphrase, I'm aware that those phrases might not correlate. But if we can do a photo shoot with someone in Seoul in Korea, for example, we know that we can make that happen. We've got people out there that can do that on the ground that we've worked with before, or friends of friends know them. So it allows us to have that real global reach. And yeah, managing that has been a challenge. I can't lie. Managing different people and in different time zones who have different personalities, who do things differently. The American way of creating content and communicating is different to what we're used to here in the UK. And that's the same in every country, in every way of life. Italy, for example, a lot more laid back. You know, they take the whole of August off, so you can't create anything with them in August. Little things like that and nuances that I've gotten used to, and you just have to learn to be a people person and manage different aspects of people and what makes them tick. And again, that's something that I'm going to take into my journey into football with my aspirations of being a first team coach. The modern day game is to have different nationalities, different people, all walks of life, and I think I'm well versed in that. I think I'm really quite experienced in that now, and different age groups. You know, I've worked with experienced people in PR and record labels or fashion brands that are been doing it for 20, 30 years, and then I've also worked with stylists and creatives and interns. It's their first job, their first gig. So being able to manage that has been a real journey and something I've really enjoyed.
So let's talk a bit about the negatives. You mentioned that and it's really important for people to know when someone's had success, it's not just been one win after another and easy sailing. You have to take a lot of rough with that smooth. So what have been some of the challenges? What lessons have you learned? To tell us about some of the negative and the difficult times that have brought you to where you are.
Yeah, it's imperative that people know that it looks great from the outside, but even to this day there are still challenges. There are invoices being paid late, deals that you've worked months and months on that then don't happen. You spend hours of your life trying to secure business that then just disappears like it never happened. You spend years banging on people's doors trying to get interviews or photo shoots with certain people, and they don't even reply, to then gradually breaking down those barriers to entry and getting to where you want to get to. It takes a long time. The Kylie Jenner thing, for example, initially we were trying to shoot Kim Kardashian, her sister, and I spent literally, no exaggeration, 2.5 years of emailing her publicist, her representative, every 2 to 3 months every month, and then every sort of 2-3 months without fail, just checking in, just trying to work out, does the schedule fit now? Are you actually interested? Did you receive my last email? Oh, we sent you some of our latest magazine in the post. Did you receive it? Doing that for 2.5 years, to then eventually getting her coming back saying, I have received all of your emails, love your endeavor, love the brand, love what you've created, have kept an eye on it. It won't work with Kim, but would you like to shoot Kylie? Well, of course we'd like to shoot her, but that all came from years and years of graft just on one person, one photo shoot. And you have to do that hundreds of thousands of times in every aspect of the business, from logistics to distribution to payroll to finances, budgeting, negotiating. So there have been a huge amount of challenges and negatives throughout that, too many to mention if I'm being honest. But the biggest ones are, you spend weeks and months of your life trying to get a deal over the line, whether that's, advertising or branding or sales or a shoot, and it just doesn't happen, and you get a no, and it's so frustrating, and you just have to pick yourself up and go again, because if you focus on that too much, the rest of everything else that you're focusing on just completely falls apart. And I've been guilty of that. I put so much effort into one thing and it not happening, and then you're like, oh yeah, I didn't do anything else for 3 weeks. I've got nothing else to focus on now. I've got to start again. So yes, it is important that people recognize that it's a lot of graft. And even with my football journey, it looks like I've landed on my feet with Bournemouth, and first job in was with Velez doing some scouting, but I've had a lot of people not reply to my messages or tell me that it's an impossible career and a situation that I shouldn't be getting myself into. But you just have to keep going and keep building and keep working and just trust that process, and know that that if that's in your heart of hearts, if that's what you want to do, you will get there. We always talk about it at home, my wife and I, that you can't really picture your dream or your future, but it's a little dot on the horizon. And if you don't take your eye off that, then you just keep walking and keep running and keep building towards that. That you don't necessarily know what it looks like, but you just know that there's something in the distance that you want to get to. And we've been working with that kind of mantra for many years now, and taking the rough with the smooth, because there's been a hell of a lot of things that don't go right, and things that you think are going to go right that then go wrong. It's so up and down. It is a roller coaster, and I'm sure that's the same in football and coaching. Next thing you know, you're packing your bags for an amazing opportunity, and the next thing you got the sack. So, or you might be trying to sign a player, and then that player, turns around and goes somewhere else. So all of this that I've learned is transferable for me, hopefully into more leadership roles in the future. But yeah, it's not been plain sailing.
Well, let's talk about those transferable skills. What do you think you've learned over the years as a CEO, and through all of your journey up until that point, that will help you as a football coach?
I mentioned it there. Being good with people, it's imperative. Football coaches, I've learned early on in lots of meetings that I've had, lots of calls that I've had, trying to take bits of information for from as many people that would allow me to, and I've been very grateful for that. But what I've learned quickly is that football coach is a role that is essentially, you're a salesman, right? A salesperson. You need to convince these people, to get them onto your journey, to believe in what you believe in, and if they go along with it, then they're going to learn more skills and technique, and then also you're gonna grow as footballers and people. So I think having those sales techniques and being good with people and being able to learn and read the room, and when to talk, when not to talk, the tone, when to have sense of humor, when not, when it's serious, when it's not, all of that I've learned tenfold over the years with so many different characters and different people that I've come across in business, in music and fashion. It's a very quirky, cliquey world, and without that, I think I'd be going in quite fresh-faced into football, which is probably very, very similar in that sense. And then, without realizing, I've had a team of staff that I, over the years, would have coached to an extent and helped manage and shape their pathway and give them advice and make key decisions with them and to help them grow. And that's essentially my role now. I'm still involved in the business. I help make key decisions and to shape the future and to steer the boat. And I think that's what a good coach and a good manager does, is to make those big decisions, and also to recognize when they're wrong, and the fact that they might be wrong, and that there are other people out there that are maybe better equipped for certain situations. So I'm no spring chicken. I'm 31 now. So we made a conscious decision that our recent hires were in their mid-20s or their early 20s, because that's our key demographic for both for tomorrow. Sorry. So it was no good employing someone like me that may have the experience in that sense, but they weren't in those circles of Gen Z and go into the parties and the gigs anymore. Like, I've been there, done that. I don't do that as much anymore. I'm not ashamed to say that. But these people do, my team now do. So it was very important that we recognized, okay, at that point, if we're going to either stick with the demographic, or is it going to grow with us? Is it going to age with us? And we decided as a team that it was better to stick in that market. So the hires that we made were around that age group and were important. So you have to recognize where you're good at, where your skill set is good at, and then building that team around you to grow. Like, I'm creative, but there are far better photographers out there than me. I'm good with my words and I like to write, but there are people that are dedicated to their craft and are wordsmiths and are incredible writers and journalists. So it's about, okay, stepping back when need to, recognizing that I'm good at project managing and bringing everyone together with the process and the clear identity of a vision and principles and philosophy, and then letting the masters of their work go and do what they're good at. So it's you know, that's one of the things that I've really learned over the years is how to manage effectively and manage a team to success.
What you've just said there sounds exactly like what a head coach does. You know a bit about everything, but you also know when to defer to other people and how to bring people together to get the best out of them as individuals and as a collective.
Yeah, it's well, I hope so, because that's where I want to go and that's where I want to get to. So if you're saying that I'm showing signs of that skill set already, then that's fantastic, because that's exactly what I want, you know, the decision makers to hear, because that's where I want to be. I love also being part of that. You know, there's no better feeling than when you pull everything together and then you see the project come to life, or you see the results and you see the success. That's what I get a real kick out of. It's an amazing feeling, going from the inception of an idea to building it, to growing it, and then to seeing it in fruition. So yeah, that's a massive part of that. And then all of the things that I mentioned earlier about, you know, negotiating deals, finance, logistics, they may not be specific to a head coach role, but you have to have the awareness of that in football in general, and in business in general, because ultimately football is a business, to understand why is the chairman thinking that, or why is the CEO thinking that, why is he coming at me like that. I will completely understand, because I've been on the other side of the fence, just in a different world. So I'll kind of understand what they're looking for, what they need, as well as the players and the fans and the club as well, as at the same time. So yeah, I'm hopeful, and I'm really confident that I can do all of that with those past experiences and those transferable skills. So I'm pleased that you said that.
Honestly, there's a lot of validity to that, and it really is just about because it's then applying the football knowledge in those kind of same situations, which, judging by the fact that you worked as a video analyst, sorry, for Velez in the south of Spain, then you don't get that kind of role without knowing a thing or two about football. So you certainly would know a lot of the game, what you're talking about, and then with these management skills that you've learned over the years, you'll be able to apply it, no problem. Let's just talk briefly then about this analyst role. So where was it? What were you doing?
Yeah, sure. I've just briefly moved, by the way. I've noticed that the sun was sweeping its way across, so I didn't want to disappear into the camera. Yeah, so again, just to summarize as well. So obviously I spent 10 years as the CEO, and I still am involved. And last year I thought, right, I'm going to start working and looking at football. And like I said, originally it was just about speaking to people and connecting with people. I then connected with a guy called Chris, who founder of Ronnie Dog Media, and was so forthcoming in terms of giving me contacts and time, and he's a fantastic guy. And after a few Zoom calls like this, he actually said, look, you know, he was involved with Velez in the Spanish second division, and was like, look, I really like you, I like what you're about. If you've got some spare time, we could do with a hand. And that was the first kind of door that opened for me in the football world. And I had to take it, you know, like you've just said, what a huge opportunity that is and was. And I was in regular conversation with the head of recruitment, sporting director, fellow scouts. It was a real eye-opener into that world of data and scouting, and what Velez as a club looks for, how they operate, bits of software, everything that you can imagine I was privy to. So as a first role goes, it was fantastic. And it was only ever supposed to be, like I said, just a meeting, a Zoom call, to then be offered something and get involved in that club was fantastic. Now, Velez have huge opportunities like that, and I was was part of a bigger group that they brought in, but it was amazing. And I did that for 6 months because things were then starting to get really hectic. I got offered the job at Bournemouth, and I couldn't do both, and decided that I wanted to go down the coaching route as opposed to scouting. But that crash course, if you like, in scouting and analytics, we were doing so many reports every week, watching games, meetings, things like that. It was really insightful, and I felt like I got everything out of that I needed to get. I'd love to maybe revisit it in the future. I've got aspirations maybe of being sporting director, but for the moment, I'm focused on being on the grass and leading a team. But yeah, it was just a huge opportunity that I'm still very, very grateful for. Like, you can imagine, at that time there was nothing on my football CV, nothing. He was one of the first calls I had with Chris, and I just told him a very similar story that I told you around my background and what I did. And yeah, I had to do a few test reports and talk to him about the game and talk to him about football and my philosophy and everything like that. And yeah, I was lucky that he saw something in me and he gave me that chance. And yeah, it was great. It was really good fun, and not many people have that on their CV as well. So yeah, it was really, really insightful.
So that would be Chris Darwin, Total Football Analysis magazine.
Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah, their stuff is absolutely brilliant, and I'm going to keep keep banging the drum of Total Football Analysis, because it's full of dedicated scouts and analysts, and I can't even think of the superlatives to use to describe just how good their content is. It's phenomenal, and I don't I don't listen to TalkSport. I don't watch Sky. I don't do any of that stuff anymore, because I just find a lot of it to be cliche bollocks from people who played the game 30 years ago, who are really, really good at what they did, but can't adequately or accurately describe what's happening in a football match. And yet these guys on Total Football Analysis, it's brilliant. It's beyond words just how good their stuff is. And I urge all coaches to have a look, because you will learn so much from reading. The monthly the monthly magazine that they put out is great, as well as the regular articles on the site. So let's then just finish off with one last question, which is around how you've managed all these different aspects of your career, because you've had your fingers on a lot of pies, you've been spinning a lot of plates at the same time, and you're trying to climb the ladder in a few different industries. And I'm sure that must be time consuming. I'm sure it must feel like your brain never stops thinking, because there's always stuff to do and there's always something to achieve. And like you said, chasing invoices or not being paid on time, and then having to manage a group of staff, and especially across different cultures with different wants and needs of all these people. That there's a lot going on. It's not as simple as just sending a few emails. It comes with a lot of mental stress as well, and can take over other areas of your life. So what have you learned along the way to help you deal with this? How do you, or do you even deal with it? So a successful way to manage it all.
That's very true, actually. I think it just comes from, you just get on with it, because like, only I have put myself in that situation. Like, and no one else has told me, right, you can work this hard, or you can sacrifice everything that you sacrificed. That was my decision. I want to get to the top. I want to be successful, and people define success differently. So it's kind of like, it's part and parcel. If you're aiming for up here, there's going to be some collateral. There's going to be some stress that goes with it. So I think I just recognized early on that, okay, this is going to be hard, and some days I'm not going to manage it well, excuse me, and other days going to be fine. I just think I recognized that was part and parcel of what I wanted to do. It would have been far easier to have stopped the blog and stopped the magazine and worked for the PR agency and let them have the stress and the pressure and the decisions, and just be a foot soldier. And that's great, that's fine. A lot of people do that, and I'm jealous of that sometimes, because sometimes I do question why I'm always reaching for more, or why I'm always trying to do more, when it would be far easier just to relax and do as you're told for a bit. And but no, I do cope, and sometimes I don't cope. There isn't really a coping mechanism. I don't meditate, or there is no secret diet or anything like that. It's just, you get up. If you want to achieve what I want to achieve, then I've got to do what I've got to do. And I am very fortunate and grateful that my partner has been an amazing soundboard, and she is absolutely brilliant. So I guess one recommendation would go get yourself a partner and a wife, and have that structure and that at home, and stability at home, and because it does go a long way. I've seen a lot of coaches and players that speak differently of when they were single versus when they're not, and it is very, very true, to have that support and that support network, to vent when it's going bad, and also to celebrate when it's going really, really well. That's been great. But yeah, there is no magic wand, I'm afraid. I think you just get on with it. You just sort of go, right, okay, this is what I want to do. There's going to be some huge challenges, and just try and work through them to the best of your ability, and recognize that it's going to take a long time. And it's not an overnight success. Some things can be, but most of the time it's a long journey. But yeah, get yourself a support network, and just, I think for me, I've learned recently as well, when I switch off, to actually switch off, to listen to some music, or do something different, or read a different book, or cook, or eat, or do something different, so your brain is elsewhere, because without realizing that then frees up some space, and you can then go again. And one thing as well I've just remembered is I spread my day out, so I don't work solidly from 5 in the morning till 5 at night. I will do a few hours here and a few hours there, and I'll go and have some lunch, and I'll go and do some errands or something, and then I'll go back into it, and then I may still be working or doing something at 10, 11, 12 at night, but I've broken it up along the day, and that helps, because it compartmentalizes everything, so you can learn and reset, and learn and reset, or chase someone, speak to someone, and reset and go again. So yeah, if that's how I've dealt with it, really. And just a real drive to be successful, and just knowing that there's going to be some pitfalls that come with that.
Great lessons to finish on. It takes what it takes. Compartmentalize, work hard, and find yourself a really, really good support network.
Definitely.
There's no magic pill. There's no secret. There's no shortcut. You got to put the work in. Joe, it's been fantastic talking to you. I'm sure that people listening to this are going to learn a lot from it. Very, very inspiring. Thank you for being so candid and sharing your time and your journey with us. All of the best. I'm sure that you're going to do well, and a lot of people will be keeping an eye on you, because it sounds like you've got a great base to build for success.
Thank you, mate. No, I really appreciate your time, and keep up the good work in what you're doing with the network. It's a fantastic resource, and yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting to you, and we'll stay in touch, I'm sure. So yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. But the network only works because of people like yourself who contribute so much to it. I'm just providing a platform for other people to shine and share the great things they do. So thank you for that. We're in debt to you and to all the other coaches out there who've come on, who've shared their journeys, their thoughts, their experiences. So thank you once again. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon. Another great guest with so much to share. Thank you to Joe, and thank you for listening. It's great that so many coaches are giving up their time for the rest of us to benefit from their insight and experience. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do tell your friends. It's now available to listen to directly on the BFCN app. The app allows you to view jobs, read articles, interact with other coaches and listen to interviews, and all in one place. If you're currently on the hunt for jobs, there's a couple going in the US, there's a few academy jobs in England, a couple decent ones recently in the Middle East, and we've just had a batch in Norway. On the horizon, China is starting to open up again, so pretty soon we're going to have some decent jobs going over there as well. Once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.